Let me give you a little introduction about Jeff here. Really cool guy. He's been in the industry for a while now. In fact, actually pretty much since its conception, yet he has stayed nose to the grind, understanding the principles, and then kind of being on the forefront of some of the more advanced stuff that's happening. Really excited to have him on here. And some of the resources that I found on him have actually called him the most handsome man in social media marketing. So we're really blessed to have this guy on here today. How you doing, Jeff?
I'm doing fantastic. Thanks for having me, Austin.
Yeah, man, this is going to be a really fun interview. But before we kind of get started about talking some of the deep content, I want to hear about your story. Like, where do you come from, man?
Yeah, man. So my story that I've told in a myriad of different ways, usually I like to talk about my journey of becoming an entrepreneur and having my own company. And the kind of like rapid fire version of it is I grew up in Long Island, wanted to be point guard for the Knicks. That didn't work out. Wanted to be the next Stanley Kubrick. That didn't work out. Tried to have a photography business where I traveled around the world taking pictures of half naked women. That didn't work out. Started a personal chef service, worked out for about 2 years, realized I didn't know anything about business. Went back to school, got my MBA from Drexel, came out around the time that social media was becoming a really prominent conversation. I had been on MySpace and Friendster and used AOL Instant Messenger and chat rooms all my life. So I was a techie and a geek. And here I was coming out of this business program where I was pretty much the outcast because I'm the creative kid in the class. And I realized here's this game-changing social technology. It's going to be a disruptor. If I learn more than anybody else and I just run faster than everybody else, I can be at the forefront. So that's what I did. And in 2008, 2010, I was at a management consulting firm as an interactive marketing specialist. Did a whole bunch of cool stuff there, designing the company's first social strategy, implementing a lot of the principles of social business, incorporating social into our hiring, into internal collaboration processes. So I was way ahead of the social business movement, which still hasn't caught up yet. I'm still waiting on that. Went from there to a PR firm, was the director of the social media practice group. And after 11 months, we realized that we weren't a good fit for one another. So went home, had all my stuff on my lap in a cab and had no idea what I was going to do when one of my clients from the PR firm called and said, I'm coming with you. I said, I'm going home. I don't know what I'm doing, but I'll give you a call on Monday. And over the weekend, I came up with a name for the business, bought a domain, got all the social handles, and the rest is history. So here we are 6 years later. True Voice Media is still what I consider to be one of the leaders in the movement of social business. But we've really pivoted to spend a lot of our time on social media and content marketing because that's what people ask about.
Dude, that's an amazing story. Seems like you've tried a lot. And I feel like that's what a lot of entrepreneurs are, is they dabble in a few things first and then they end up finding what they're passionate about, and that spawns all the money. It seems like you came from this creative background, but didn't recognize that in yourself until maybe later.
Well,
and then
actually,
once you
I'll tweak and correct that just because I would say my journey similar to that, but I followed my passion at every step of the way. It just so happened that I failed in a multitude of different directions of following my passion, and following my passion led me to find a passion where I could actually be successful in business. And I think that it was the product of following the passion and along the way constantly preparing myself and educating myself and gaining the skills needed to eventually arrive at a point where I could take the amalgam of all of those skills and get out into the world and do something that I could be successful at. So I followed passion every step of the way. I didn't, and I wanted to be the point guard for the Knicks because I loved basketball. I played every day from the time I was 13 till I was 18. I would spend weekends, morning to night, being called in because it was dark and it was time for dinner. So I followed the passion. I just am 5'5" and my jumper is good, but not great. So, so basically couldn't overcome those odds. And I just kept going after things and, just realizing when it was time to pivot, finally got to a point where I found something where everything just kind of aligned right.
Dude, I love that, man. That's a really cool story. Very interesting. And so we're now 6 years later, and you're the founder of True Voice Media, work with an array of different clients. Have you ever thought about niching down? Is that even in your blueprint?
So the reason why is just because I know that I get bored very easily. So like, for instance, I have a podcast called Shareable, and we did the first season was like an amazing success of relative to our previous podcast efforts. But I got 22 episodes in and I was like, I don't like this format anymore. All right, shut it down. We're going to go into season 2 with something totally different. So I know that if I were to be, we started the company working with clients in finance. And, we could crush it if all we worked with was finance clients, but I would get bored as sin. And what I like is that I actually find that the things that I learn from working with clients in one area are applicable to clients in a completely different area of business. And, things you learn from working with small clients, you can apply to big clients. So I like not niching it down because I like being able to work with everyone. Our niche is strategy. We like to understand how to solve problems. And the best way you can do that is by confronting as many problems as possible so that you can learn from each of them and then bring that to the next, the next engagement.
Yeah, that's awesome. And in your roles, True Voice Media is more than just social media marketing, more than just paid advertising. It's content strategy. It's really the whole gamut. Are you a complete full service, full stack agency?
Yes and no. So we are a full service agency in the sense that like a client can come to us and anything that exists in digital, we can provide. We just don't always have it under our roof. So what we are at our core is a team of strategists and project managers. And we generally manage teams of freelancers and other agencies to get the project done, but we are the holders of the strategy. We are the captains of the ship saying, this is where we're going and these are the components that are necessary and here's how they fit together. But we don't always, we're not always swinging the hammer, so to speak. We're the ones that say,
Sure.
here are the tools that are necessary and how they're going to work together.
Yep. So a lot of the entrepreneurs in the Entrepreneur Alliance are agency owners, but they're really focused on pay-per-click advertising, whether that's Google AdWords or display networks or Facebook. And they really just focus on that and then often for one specific niche. So they'd be like Facebook advertising for plumbers, right? Like that would be a very specific niche. On the other hand, there is the white label agency that doesn't really do any contact with the client, but really is the back end, kind of like how you hire fulfillment guys to swing the hammer, but you're the captain of the ship. You're the one on the client side, on the forefront, creating the strategy. So it's cool that we're talking at about a much higher level of agency, almost like the evolution of it, where if some of the EA members that really love this stuff, that get obsessed about the strategy and really like the robustness that can come from a campaign, then they can aspire to be something like True Voice Media.
Yeah, I actually believe that the agency of the future is a network. It's not actually a single entity that exists under one roof, because what you get with that is the whole, and many of your members may be too young to know about this. And this is one of the few times I ever find myself feeling dated, but the TV VCR combo or like the, VCR DVD combo or whatever. You do one thing well, or you can do a multitude of things mediocre. I look at it this way. You should be really effing good at one thing. And you can work with somebody else who's really effing good at their thing. But you'll always need somebody that's going to tie it all together. So that they need to be really good at tying the pieces together and understanding the whole thing. That's what we do. I don't think we're any more evolved than the people that swing the hammer. We just have a different role. We just have a different role to play. And I really like that role and we're naturally good at it. But we also, swing the hammer, so to speak, and build a lot of these Facebook ads. But, I'm never going to be a better graphic designer than my graphic designer. She's an outlier in the world of graphic design. She's brilliant. I'll never be able to do that. So why would I? But if I can bring her to the table, I think that gives me a lot more value than the big agencies that, one, are too big to be able to move quickly and nimbly. They also don't have the breadth of experience to be able to work with small and large in different industries. So they don't get the learning. So as an example, the person that's listening right now that does, say, social media advertising for plumbers, one of our most successful campaigns or learnings that we ever got, we learned from working with two completely different types of businesses. So we learned something working for an online mattress retailer. They basically sell mattresses over the internet. They come to your house in a box. We learned something from them that helped us to sell medical malpractice insurance on Facebook. If we only worked with insurance companies or we only worked with mattress companies, we never would have been able to bring that learning across, which is why I'm so passionate about being able to work with different types of businesses, because you just learn cool stuff.
Now, does that make the business more complicated? One of the beauties about niching down is that you can almost, especially if it's a local service-based industry, you can almost copy and paste the campaign and have predictably similar results in different zip codes. On the other hand, it's almost like you become in this think tank that, no new ideas come in.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's hard to really skyrocket or make a relevant jump in the ability to boost conversions or, lower your cost per advertising, whether it's clicks or leads or whatever it may be. It's hard to get those new ideas in when you're only dealing with one industry. So it's interesting because we talk about, the controversy between different thought processes, and there's not one to say that one is right and one is wrong. But one thing I'm curious to ask from you is, what's something that you disagree with that you used to think was like maybe something, a philosophy that you had last year or in the past that you now have changed your mind on?
Hmm. I don't know, because I find I don't have too many like kind of 180s on things. It's more like a 15-degree turn from what it's like, an evolution more so than it is like a, kind of a birth of a new species or something. Um, there aren't a lot of things that from when I got involved in social media back in 2007, 2008, when I was coming out of my MBA. If you look at the things I was writing back then, if you look at the things I was writing back in 2010, a lot of that stuff it aligns very, very deeply with what I'm doing now. I think that the things that have changed are the result of the changes that are actually happening out in the world. So back in 2008 to 2011, social media was all about engagement, or it was engagement, relationships, conversations, engagement. Like that was the big thing. And back then, when you didn't have an EdgeRank algorithm, or you didn't have this ubiquity of social and so much noise coming through the pipes and all the different things that happened, that actually made a lot more sense, but it didn't necessarily make business sense. And I think I've learned over, at a certain point in my life, I wrote an article once that I thought was like the coolest thing I ever wrote. It was called "If You Build It, They Will Come." That's not how it works. You have to actually get people to come to it. Back then, it was a little easier. Like if you did build something extraordinary, you would stand out because most people weren't doing things. Now that doesn't exist. I used to think, it's all about engagement. I actually have that on some old slides. I think that's BS right now. It's not all about engagement. It's all about results. If you're working in business and you're using social, it's not about engagement. Nobody cares about how many friends you have as a business. Not that it's not helpful, not that relationships and conversations aren't the underlying foundation that make these things move. It's just that if that's what you think it is, if that's where it stops for you, you're missing the boat. So I think as I evolved as a strategist, and as I learned more, and as I saw more case studies, and I tried more things and failed, I think what I learned was about how to better speak the language of business, how to better tie what we're doing back to results, how to push my prospects and my clients to be very serious about what it is they're trying to accomplish, so that we don't get into a situation where 3 months in they say, well, what happened out of this? And you're like, well, you said that you wanted brand awareness. We're delivering you brand awareness. And they're like, well, why don't we have more sales? And like, that's not what you said. You said brand awareness. So we've gotten more clear on how to push to get clarity around things throughout the process.
Yeah. It's funny because, I graduated college with an online marketing degree, and the professor, she owned, one of those really big agencies that got gobbled up by the conglomerates. But she had clients like Barbie and Sunglass Hut and stuff. And that's all they care about. They actually don't care about like driving, it's not direct sales, right? It's all about engagement and having 12-year-old girls like the ad, like it was all about that. How do we get, like the Barbie game to have the most amount of playtime and not even like, drive sales? They just expect that to happen with engagement. But I think now more than ever, our attention can get taken away more than it used to in the past. And maybe that's why engagement doesn't drive the bottom line as much as it used to. There's just so much competition. So I don't know. I totally understand, where you're coming from with that, because I see it every day. One thing that we have learned about engagement is, and this is, I guess, a good segue into talking about advanced Facebook ads, is we, in the beginning now, we have found that our long-term profitability starts with running an engagement campaign toward our Facebook ads, getting all these likes, comments, and shares on that bottom row. And that's actually the biggest lever that we can pull to boost or to lower our cost per click in the future audiences that we actually want to convert. And so we'll switch the objective of the campaign, beginning with engagement, ending with website conversions, maybe 2 or 3 weeks in.
Yeah. So I think you just kind of hit on what's going to be the thesis of our talk today, which is that your campaigns need to be well thought out, and you need to move people through a process. I think what probably the biggest mistakes I see are one of two things. Either advertisers are just jumping into it and they don't know shit about it. So sorry, I just cursed on your show. I don't know if
You're allowed to curse, man.
okay, good. They just don't shit about it, so they just hit the boost button, right? And they're like, whoa, and they're not getting sales, so they're just ignorant to it, either by choice or just by design. They just don't know the opportunities that are available to them. So that's the first thing. The second thing is that people go out and they try to they're basically like a teenage boy rushing into a party with girls. They're just in a hurry, right? They're just like, hey, buy from me. Like they just jump into it and they're like, hey, buy from me. We have an important product. It's great. So they forget to build that relationship in the beginning, which, I don't want it to sound like woo woo about it, but like people need to know who you are before they're going to buy from you. And I think when you put together a smart campaign, that smart campaign is going to be very dynamic. You're going to be talking to people that you have established a previous relationship and a measurable previous relationship with. So when we get into the advanced Facebook ads things, it's about a mode of thinking about why you would spend money instead of just kind of throwing money down I like to say that I think the Facebook boost button should actually just be the Facebook donate button, because you're essentially just donating money to Facebook for them to let you reach the people you've already paid in general to acquire as fans. So it's just not the right way to go about doing it.
Dude, that's hilarious. The first time I met Gary Vaynerchuk, he said all the boys are trying to find their Beyonce. No, he goes, all the boys are just trying to get their Rihanna, but what they really need is a Beyonce to put a fucking ring on it. And I thought it was one of the best one-liners he had of the whole conference, because so often we're trying to get that one-night stand real quick, just go in, get a client real fast, whether that's a client for yourself or you're trying to get your customers' clients. And it doesn't work like that. You do need to be like a Beyonce, put a ring on it, build that relationship. I think it's a missing step that a lot of people forget because we're so about direct sales. Like, they have ugly buttons and they have no branding on it, and just like the worst campaign visuals that don't have anything to do with the branding, the long-term play. But they're just all about the direct response. How do I get this one sale, maybe a boost of 3% extra, but it looks ugly as hell? And so I think that there's a good balance in between that we can look at. How do we go between, finding that what drives the needle right now today as soon as possible, at the same time as building a relationship and having a long-term thought process with all of our clients.
Yeah. So just to kind of piggyback off of Gary Vaynerchuk's comment there, and I have a very strange relationship towards the content and ideas of Gary Vaynerchuk, but I will say I have a side business it's an online dating consultancy called Hitch Philly, and I generally advise people on how to find the love of their life. So what I would say is you need to know who is the Beyonce that you're actually looking for in the first place. So going like long-term thinking about it, but you need to be looking for your Rihannas in the short term until you find your Beyonce. So to your point, it is a balance. Like you can't sacrifice the short term just for the long term, and you can't sacrifice the long term just for the short term. That's why you need to have that comprehensive strategy where you're thinking about the long term, but you're building a plan that addresses both the needs of the short term, the midterm, and the long term. But if you don't know where you're going, you're just going to be consistently stuck in that short-term mindset, and you're going to have some wins along the way, but you're going to get burnt out, and you're eventually going to find that whatever that tactic is, whatever that shtick is that you're doing, there's going to be a change to the network, and you're going to have a hard time with it. So you have to be of a long-term mindset while still being able to operate effectively in the short term.
Perfect, man. Great advice. Well, let's go ahead and jump into the content about Facebook advertising. I guess we'll start with the intro and then go to the advanced, huh?
Yeah. So I call this intro to advanced Facebook ads. Affectionately, I call it intro to advanced Facebook ads, because I think you can't understand advanced Facebook ads unless you understand the basics of Facebook ads, but it's pretty simple to get past the basics and then move into the more advanced stuff. And at the most advanced level, like, if I were to sit down and talk with John Loomer, Facebook ads specialist of the stars, so to speak, he probably has about like 15 different campaigns that he's run that I'd never even conceived. And I've probably got in my back pocket another 15 or 20 that he hasn't conceived. But once you get to a certain point, it's just about how you're remixing the elements, but you first have to understand the core components that you're playing with. So I'd say the first thing is to understand how Facebook ads are generally structured. And just to give like a very quick example of it, or I guess a quick mental, I don't have a visual for this right now, but at the top level, you have your campaign. And that is, when we think of the word campaign, we're generally thinking about a time-based situation. So it's, I'm going to run a campaign from this date to this date. In the lingo of Facebook, campaign simply means objective. It's what you're trying to accomplish. And what most people get wrong in Facebook ads is they're picking the wrong objective for what their actual business goals are. So you're running a page post engagement thing, great. But if you're trying to drive sales, it's terrible. Or you're trying to run a sales campaign, but or you're trying to run a brand awareness campaign and you're using something like a conversion objective. So first you have to pick the right objective. And inside of that, there's just a lot of different, ways that you can look at. So if you're running a conversion campaign, you can do that from everything from like an individual image to an individual video. You could use a Canvas ad, Instagram stories. There's lead magnet or lead form ads. There's traffic ads. There's awareness ads, video view ads, page post, app installs. There's all these different campaigns. So you have to pick the right one. Inside of that, once you get one level down from there, now you're picking your placement, where you're going to put it. You're going to pick your budget and you're going to pick your audience. And inside of those audiences, you have saved audiences, which are like people that you're going to put together as like who you want to reach. So you can go in there and say, I want 18 to 35-year-olds, male, living within 10 miles of the Space Needle that like tacos. You can do that as a group, and you can save that audience and continually promote to them. The other type of audience you can create are custom audiences. And that's either audiences that are based off of an email list that you have, custom audience where you upload like an email list and you can target them, or lookalike audiences, or it could be traffic. So people who have visited your website, this is done through the Facebook pixel. Super important that you have that on your website. So that gives you the ability to target people who have visited your website overall, people who have visited individual pages, people who have visited individual pages, but not other pages. So you can build audiences around that. And then the final one, and this is one of the more exciting ones, are engagement ads. So that is an ad based upon people who have interacted with a previous Facebook ad or people who have visited your Instagram profile. There's a number of different options. There's people who have engaged with one of your canvases or full screen experiences. There's people who have engaged with a video. Maybe they've watched 3 seconds, 10 seconds, 25%, 50%, 75%. So all these are audiences that you can then retarget off of, which is something that we're going to talk a little bit more in the future. And then there's your ad level, which is the actual content that goes into the ad. There's videos, stories, Instagrams, carousels, slideshows, etc. There's all these different types. So that's the basic structure. And, I can send over like a graphic of that, but the point is people should just play with these things, but it's important to just generally understand that your campaign is where you start. That's the objective you're trying to do. Inside that, you have to think, who's the audience? Where's it going to go? How much am I going to spend on it? And every new ad set requires budget. And inside that, there's ads. Okay. So that's the structure, right? Here's some stuff that needs to be said about it. One, always test. Always be testing. ABT. It's not like Glengarry Glen Ross will always be closing. So every ad campaign we ever run, we generally will take the first 30% of the budget and we will accelerate that spend in the beginning just to run our tests. So you can test at a campaign level. You can test 2 different types of things, like a traffic ad versus a conversion ad, or a lead form ad versus a conversion ad on your website. Or you could do a video view versus a brand awareness. So depending on what your goals are, you could test at that level. That's generally not where we advise testing. Okay. The next level down, your ad set level, you can test ad sets. You can test 2 different audiences against each other. So you can say, is our audience male or female? You can test it. Is our audience in New York or California? You can test it. Is our audience a net worth above 150,000 or is it a net worth below 100,000? Which one is it? You can test it. So the idea is to get in a mindset of, if you understand the structure, you can then better understand where you can run your tests. And those tests are going to be invaluable to you actually dropping your cost per result. So if you're looking to get video views down to like a penny per view, if you run 3 different videos in there, you can figure out which one of them is going to get your video view cost the lowest. It's basically the idea. So at the ad set level, it means you're going to be able to test different budgets. It's going to be able to test different placements, be able to test different audiences. At the ad level, you're going to be able to test different images, different videos, basically different formats. You're going to test different headlines, maybe different buttons. But the key is you need to limit the number of tests you have so that you can actually track which variable made the difference. So if you're doing an A/B test and in one ad, you're testing, you have an ad set where you're testing men and the other ad set women, and then in both of those you have 2 totally different ads, how the hell do you know it even worked? So you have to get the principles of A/B testing down, which is to limit your number of variables that you're testing against each other in every test to like one or two things. Technically, you should do it to like one. So whenever we run an ad campaign, the first 30%, we might do, let's say, a traffic campaign, and we'll have 5 different blog posts, and we have, 2 different audiences. So we might take those 2 different audiences and we will split them into 4 ad sets. So let's say we're testing men against women. We'll do 2 ad sets for men, 2 ad sets for women. And we'll take those 5 blog posts and put them in each of them. And we'll do kind of men A, men B, women A, women B. And we'll basically change the headlines or images for the B tests against the A tests. And we'll figure out which ones work. And then after that first 30%, we'll look at the winners. We'll shut off all the losers, and we'll just keep the top 10%, basically. So a good method to be in is basically run 5 ads and shut off the bottom performing 3, and then replace them with 3 new ones. And keep the winners running, and then try a new set of 5 and keep the top 2. And if you do that, you're going to get your ad cost per ad results, whatever they might be, you're going to get them way down by having them compete against each other. So I'll pause there for any follow-up questions on that. Does it all make sense?
Dude. Yeah, I love it. So let me, most of the people here pretty much know the business manager. So for the couple of you that are maybe newer to this, and maybe you're just trying to figure out, maybe you're an SEO guy trying to figure out Facebook ads right now. There's 3 levels: campaign, ad set, the ad. Campaign, we choose our objective. What do we want to happen? In the middle, our ad set is, all about our audience, placement, budget. And in the very bottom is the actual creative. And so, this is one thing interesting that we've personally done in our team that maybe is different than your style, which I always like to bring up different styles, because when it comes to advertising, there's no right way. There's just different ways.
Yep.
Right. And they can, equally get different results, great results, doesn't matter. One thing that we've been doing, we used to run all of our stuff through Ad Espresso. Do you know what that software is? So it'll automatically split out all your different split tests, and it saves you hours. Like, it is so great. And we used to test all of these different, ways that we could test headlines and creative and all this different stuff. Today, we came to this kind of realization in our business is that social proof is the biggest lever puller on all creative. So we looked at, we dissected what an ad, what changes the difference between a split test, whether it's the actual copy itself, whether short copy, long copy, and then, graphic designed photo versus a photo with a human face, and which one does better against that, and the headlines. And then the bottom part, the comments, likes, and the shares. And so what we came to find is that the copy changes the results by a variation of about 17%. The copy, the photo itself, that's the copy. The photo itself is about 50%. And then all of the other blocks at the very bottom is a variation of about 20%. But the biggest variation seems to come from whether or not the engagement is high. So it might have a really high traffic, click-through rate, but maybe they don't end up buying. But if we get all these reviews stacking up on the ad, that actually will increase the number of clicks, the click-through rate, lower the cost per click, and then get the cost per lead much lower if we can design the ad to have a lot of engagement on the social part of it. Now, here's the unfortunate part of split testing creative is all of the social proof goes away. Mm-hmm. So when you have 2 different ads and you change the headline of one to the other, the social proof doesn't transfer over. Mm-hmm. And so this was the epiphany that we got, is that we no longer publicly put a lot of money into a split test for the creative. For the very bottom level of our funnel of the business manager, mm-hmm. we only now split test ad sets and objectives. So those are the only 2 things that we split test now, and we have the best creative that we can come up with. We'll beta test it within our groups and our friends, and hey, which one would you choose? But we really only release one. We'll maybe try a couple for a very low budget and just barely figure out which one might do better. But ultimately, we have one creative, we throw all of our advertising at that and let that social proof rack up, which is different than yours. And so I'm not saying one is better than the other.
So can I actually bring the two of them together?
Let's do that.
Okay. So I think the social proof element is excellent. And before I bring the two of them together, I also just want to caution, you have to have a really kick-ass product, because I've seen ads for courses and things like that, and they have tons of comments, but basically all of the comments are warning you to stay away. So you have to also be very careful that, like, engagement's great, but it's not a quantitative measurement, it's a qualitative measurement. If you have 10 people that have engaged on a particular post and all of them say, this is the best money I've ever spent, or if you have 1,000 of them and 2/3 of them are basically like, this is pure garbage, and they're just people arguing with each other over Trump, then you basically, that's not helping you very much. So I think you would agree with me that obviously, one, have a kick-ass product or service. But in terms of how to bring these two together, it's just a matter of sequencing, right? So what I would do is I would take all of the tests that we're encouraging, testing your creative, testing your headlines, testing your buttons, whatever it might be, and figure out the winners, and then take that same ad and run it again and build up the engagement on it first, and then put it back out there. So now you know that you have the lowest cost per click based upon the creative, all of those different things, and you're adding the social proof on top of it. So I would say it's just a matter of sequencing. I would run those quick tests to check out your headlines, check out your image, to check out whatever the different elements at the ad level are. And then I would go up to that next level, test your audiences, those sort of things. Now, once you have that, now it's just a matter of putting it out there with the winning combo. So I am completely in agreement.
So let's talk about sequencing. You say start at the very bottom with the ad. That's where you split test first. Once you figure out what ad works, then you'll go to the ad set level.
I would generally start at the ad set level first, because it's where you're going to save the most money. I mean, when you get to the ad level, the difference between, if you have 5 ads in an ad set, Facebook's going to pick the winner, and then all of a sudden, whatever the best one is going to win there. So you're not going to lose a lot of money. But if you start running too much money on an audience that does not care, then you're going to waste a ton of money. So I'd say first is your audience. Make sure you get your audience right first. After you have the audience right and you know the right placements, then you move down to that next level of the ad and you start working with that. But even within that, you might have the right audience, you just might have the wrong ad for them, right? So if you run the same ad across 2 different groups, but the messaging doesn't change for that audience, you're running the same ad to men and women, but the tone needs to be different, or to CEOs or janitors, like, you're going to need different tones. So I think that it is a balancing act. There's no hard, fast rule about the sequencing, but I do think that your audience is probably the first thing. And then you go and you match that to the creative and the content and all of that. So once you have the right audience with the right ad, then I would say, yeah, go for it. You start adding that social proof on top of it, monitor that, figure out what that is. We have an ad we've been running for a client for 6 months now. And every single month it generates results, every single month. So we have a ton of social proof on every one of these ads. We haven't had to change the creative. We found the winning one and we've just been running with it. And every single month and the results are getting better over time. We're watching the actual cost per result every single month is coming down by like $1 a conversion. That's huge.
Yeah, and that's working in both ways. First is, the creative looks better with all the engagement on it. Secondly, though, Facebook is starting to understand who your audience is and being better at targeting because you have the pixels set up.
Yep. So as we are tracked around the web, and as your ads gain momentum and start bringing in the conversions, or you see who's clicking or who's watching, Facebook will automatically start to show your ad to the people that are most likely to present that result for you. At least that's what we're led to believe and what we tend to see in the ad results. But that is how it's supposed to work, is that Facebook is trying to get you the objective that you have looked for.
Yep. And so that's why the very beginning, the very first thing they ask is, what's the objective? Because they're going to find people that are more willing to do that objective.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So I think to get into like the kind of the nitty gritty of how you go on from there is, you said something towards the beginning about how you would, build up that social proof or run the page post engagement where you get likes, comments, shares, all that stuff. And that would help your results. We actually stumbled upon a sequence that we've been using pretty frequently with clients, where we, through retargeting, through the different types of audiences that are made available to us and using different types of content, we built a dynamic campaign that basically works off of one another. So if I could share my screen for just a minute, I'm going to show you what that looks like. All right. How do I do the share screen thing? Oh, there it is. Cool. All right. Desktop. There we go. Okay. So can you see that?
Sure can.
Okay, cool. So we look at it this way. If you want somebody to buy from you, they first have to know who you are. And if you look at the way we make our purchase decisions in 2017, and if you go back, since the invent of the iPhone, we've been relying more and more and more on gathering information before making purchases, whether it's a flat screen TV, a server system, or a freaking toothbrush. We're looking at reviews. We're seeing what our friends say. We're asking for what people say on the web. We're reading articles about the company and things like that. We're finding the companies that match with our own personal values and goals and things like that. So we are looking at more information before we make that purchase decision, and we obviously first have to be known to them before they can put us in that consideration pile. So we've started designing our ad campaigns to really move people through this funnel. So we never really ask people to buy something unless we've already given them some information to help make that buying decision. And we've never offered people information to make their buying decision until they know we exist. So we generally move them through this awareness, consideration, and choice funnel. And obviously, there's no such thing as an actual funnel. It's a conceptual idea. It's not like people are, not able to drop off or go elsewhere or find information elsewhere. We're not in control of them. They're not trapped. But we think of it as a conceptual model for who do we make what offers to based upon where they are in their relationship with us and where they are in their buying journey. So what that actually winds up looking like is we might start at this top part right here where we'll show a video view campaign to an audience. And maybe we'll also do just a traffic campaign around like maybe a blog post or just getting people to our website. The people that visit our website, we're then able to retarget. And the people that have watched 10 seconds of that video view, we're then able to retarget them. So what do we retarget them with? Well, the next phase is we're going to retarget them with traffic ads to different things. They could be on our site or they could be elsewhere. So to our site, we might send them to a blog post that talks about something about why our product or service is different, something that shows off our company culture, something that shows off, where we were in the news, maybe a testimonial. We might send them to a third-party site like Huffington Post or New York Times or anywhere where we've gotten press coverage. And the idea is that we want to make that middle phase about hitting people with a lot of pieces of information who've already either seen our video to a certain extent where they've stopped in their feed and watched at least 10 seconds, or that have visited our website and we retarget them. And then the people who have engaged with that next phase, where they've looked at the content we've shown them, they've looked at the blog posts, they've maybe seen the video that we retargeted them with, whatever it might be, we then gauge their interest. So if they've watched 25% of our video, that's enough for us to say, you know what, it's at least good enough for us to offer them a sales opportunity, either to maybe opt into our website and get a lead magnet, or to come to our site and buy something, or to come to our site and submit an inquiry or contact form. So we move people through that funnel. And then what we start to do is look for other methods of generating that awareness and driving people into that top of that funnel. So we might engage influencers, and we might get product or get content placement in blogs or podcasts or things like that can drive people to that same page that we're then able to retarget them with. So we're trying to bring people into the top of that funnel in every way possible. It could be a billboard. You can hand out a freaking business card. Doesn't matter. But the minute that they hit that site and we hit them with the pixel, we're able to then retarget them when they come back to Facebook. And then we also have these other retargeting options such as Instagram or LinkedIn, Pinterest, Twitter. So once you have all those pixels on there, somebody hits your site, however you get them there, you can formulate that relationship with them. Now, what crappy marketers do is they just keep bombarding people with the same stupid message about buying. And what differentiates what we're talking about is that we have this middle tier of it, consideration, where the middle part is about strictly providing value and information to the people that are trying to figure out whether or not you're a product they want to buy. And as you do this and as you build out a framework that looks like this will get to be a more and more efficient campaign, or I don't know, I guess dynamic, multi-tiered Facebook ad strategy. Because what's going to happen is that the right people are going to fall through to the next phase of that funnel. So you're not going to waste your time asking people to buy something if they don't already have some information about you and don't know who you are. So this is really the model that we tend to follow. And I think that the key point here, and this is what makes the advanced Facebook part or the advanced social advertising in general, is that we don't generally ever run an ad that doesn't serve a purpose. And what I mean by that is it doesn't serve a purpose in the greater scheme of a framework like this. So in this, we wouldn't just run a page like ad. Now, page like might be an ad that we run, but we generally advise against it, because if your goal is to get people through a funnel to convert them or to raise awareness, you don't really need that. Unless you're trying to build a page like audience of people that you would then nurture over time with content and then ask them to buy by going through this, fine. But if it's just about feeding your ego about getting more page likes, then screw it. I'm not going to waste your budget. So brand awareness ads are another one on Facebook. Until the point at which I can actually retarget against brand awareness ads, then I don't care. If we use a page post engagement, that's an ad that we can retarget. We can bring them into the awareness phase by having a page post engagement. From there, we can then retarget anybody who's engaged with any of our content on Facebook or on Instagram and show them more information. And if they don't take that action of looking at our next phase in consideration, then they'll never make it to the point where we ask them to buy something. So we try to be very efficient in our clients' ad spend by not wasting money just walking into a place and saying like, hey, buy from me. We make sure that people know who we are, and we make sure that every ad we run is part of this dynamic Facebook ad framework. And that when we run our retargeting ads, similar sort of thing, it's a very efficient ad spend when you're just running retargeting ad, because you know these are people that already know who you are. And to be a good retargeting marketer, you have to make sure that those ads aren't just about having people buy crap from you, but instead providing something for them that's interesting, that's valuable, that's infotainment, that helps them make the buying decision because they either know you better, like you better, or trust you better. So
Amazing. I love that, man.
That's functionally the process we go through.
That was really good. I hope you guys learned a lot from that. I know I did. Here's I think what's interesting is you say there's a few objectives that you stay away from, right? First one, never really do Facebook likes to your page. That's a bad objective. What are some other ones that you would just steer your clients away from, almost like, get away, never do these objectives?
Let's call the heading of this one shit to avoid. So there's a couple, it's so funny because I've been doing this for so long that like I'm consistently like, I have to let the two sides of my brain talk to one another, because I am both a social media user and also a social media strategist. So what sometimes makes sense for you as a marketer may not make sense when you put your user hat on. So I'm constantly trying to make sure I balance those two. And oftentimes I will avoid trying certain types of ads simply because I just don't like them. And I think that most people don't like them and they don't pay attention to them. So for instance, I don't like in-stream videos. Stop interrupting my freaking content. Everybody hates that. Don't do it. It's stupid. Stop it. Put it elsewhere. So I stay away from in-stream video ads in general, because I think that's a surefire way to annoy the crap out of people. Nobody wants to see your video in the middle of something else they're watching. I think a caveat to that is that you can get away with an Instagram story ad, because it is, I just feel like it flows better. And it's not so much, and you can flip through it. So it's like you can easily get through it. And even if you can fast forward through a video, it's still a different feeling. So I just say avoid in-stream videos. The other one I would say to avoid is right column ads. They're cheap enough that like, it doesn't make sense to turn them off, but like, why? Every campaign I've ever run, I've never seen that like the right column ads are killing it. It's just a complete waste. I see no real reason to have them on. And usually ad blockers are going to stop that pretty quickly. I think page like ads are pretty much a waste of time. Nobody returns back to Facebook pages, and you can reach the exact same audience of people that like your page as just through regular targeting. So I don't think that really matters. I think people that are going to want to like your page will like your page, but I think that as an activity on Facebook, that's pretty passé. I don't know too many people that are out there just liking pages all that often. I think we get enough crap coming through our news feed that's an activity that people have pretty much stopped. And I would say in terms of like objectives to avoid it, I wouldn't really avoid too many so much as I look for the ones that I can retarget. So I would suggest for all of you marketers out there, sit down, go into the audience tab in your Facebook ad manager and do create audience and click on engagement. Go to the custom audiences and go to engagement audiences and see what you can do there. Because those I think are among the most interesting ads that you can run. And in some cases, that one I think that just came out that I think is like the dopest of the dopest right now, and it's such a good opportunity, is people who have visited your Instagram profile or who have engaged with some of your Instagram content. And the reason why is that Instagram is still somewhere where you can get an amazing amount of organic engagement and reach just by using the hashtags. So by going on Instagram and understanding hashtag culture, you can actually get people who don't even know who you are to engage with your content. They then become part of that audience. Now you could be a total D-bag and just use popular hashtags, and that'd be fine. But more importantly, if you're using targeted hashtags, people that are interested in the topic that you're talking about, you're going to build up an amazing audience of people that are actually interested in whatever the topic is that you're talking about. So they become part of an audience that you can target ads at about your product or service. So I think there's a huge opportunity there. And I would strongly advise smart marketers to jump on that one, because if you ramp up your organic Instagram activity, you can actually organically increase the size of your Instagram retargeting audience. So I'd say spend a lot of your time in the custom audience portion of the Facebook advertising back end and look at the engagement audiences that are available. And then on just in your mode of thinking, think about all of the ways that you can drive cheap traffic to your website and be able to retarget people. So
Dude, it's amazing.
can I give
I
you
love that.
ridiculous hacks just because I like
I do love hacks. So we have a whole training on Instagram itself, and one thing that I learned about was basically you write two captions on on your Facebook post. The first one being the real one, the second one being a block of hashtags that are relevant to your thing. But what you don't want to just have one; you want to have several, because not all of your content is going to be the same. So you want to have different groups. Like, for example, I have like kind of 3 or so main categories that you look at my Instagram. You'll see my personal life, you'll see adventures and travel, and then you'll see business. So each one of those things have like different groups of hashtags that I'm trying to reach out to. And I've been featured several times on the, I guess it's like a featured discovery page, right? And it's all because of like the amount of engagement within a few minutes or whatever of you posting an ad. So you can think about look at your lines. When is the highest amount of engagement? Use the block of hashtags that will get you the most engagement for that post. And I think with the retargeting aspect to this, all of a sudden now you're around their entire world. Dude, that's a great way in.
Yeah.
I love that. I'm going to start doing that now too. I actually didn't know about the Instagram retargeting until you said it today.
Yeah, it's relatively new. It's like within the last month and a half or so, I think. The thing about the hashtags, I would say, is one, keep a note on your phone. Just open up the Notes app or Evernote or wherever and save all of your different blocks of hashtags. That's one thing. You can use up to 30 on any given post, so that's the limit. One thing I would caution against is start looking up what some of the banned Instagram hashtags are. You'd be surprised. Dogs of Instagram is a banned Instagram hashtag. No, dead serious. Look up what they're banning each year, because what happens is if you include even one of them, they wipe you out of the ability to hit the Explore tab.
Wow.
Yeah.
I had no idea.
Look that up. It's definitely something worth checking out, because you want to use as many hashtags as you can that are relevant, but you also want to avoid the banned ones, because if you slip up and you put in, say, 29 awesome ones and then one banned one, you're screwed. So don't use that. What are some of the other things I was going to say? Oh, so I want to give you some hacks that we've come up with.
I love hacks.
Yeah,
the juicy details.
These are special just for your audience. Never before released on Wax. So here we go.
Whoa.
Here's a couple. One, social proof is incredibly powerful, as you know. So if you want to get a video view campaign where your cost per video view drops and drops and drops and drops and drops, run the first 2 days of your video campaign, target the video views to Brazil, Algeria, Albania, third world countries, where the cost per video view is going to be 10 to a penny rather than 1 to a penny. And what you'll see is you could rack up 25,000, 75,000, 100,000 views. Then you turn that off, change your targeting, bring it back to the US. Now all of a sudden you're showing around a video that has 100,000 engagements. Now you could say that's shady. Okay, fine. It is.
No, dude, when I was at Traffic and Conversion, Mike Dillard, he shared that tip on
Yeah.
stage. I thought that was genius.
Yeah. I mean,
It
it's
is,
just leveraging the power of social
it's
proof.
just smart marketing,
Yeah.
honest.
Okay, so there's one. Another thing you can do, and I just recently learned about this, and it's honestly a little bit everything I hate in advertising and marketing, but I also have to give props to the idea behind it. But you can actually put in a manual bid around your traffic campaigns. So you can say, I'm willing to pay this amount for traffic. So if you want to drive a ton of traffic to your website, solely so that you can like this could be a move for maybe a podcaster or for a blogger that is trying to bring in advertisers. What you can do is you can run a campaign on your website and you run it targeted to the entire United States. You run a traffic campaign and say you're willing to pay a penny, and you make your bid a penny, and you make your budget like $200 a day. You'll never spend $200 a day that way. But if you did, think how much traffic you would get to your website. So you can do the math around what you want your budget to be. You make it a penny or 2 pennies for your traffic. What then happens is you can then go to your advertisers and show them the last 3 months of your traffic. And you can say, hey, by the way, we're getting X number of hits on our website. And would you like to advertise with us? Now, once they start advertising, you can turn that budget back around and start investing in the right type of traffic. So you're basically leveraging the ignorance of what most advertisers are doing, which is they're just looking for the quantity, not the quality. So you can actually just use that as a hack to start actually generating ad revenue by showing them your last 3 months of traffic, which is like, hey, we're getting 50,000 hits every month. Would you like to advertise with us? And be like, well, hell yeah, you get 50,000 hits a month. They're not going to ask about your demographic. They're not going to ask about any of that generally, because most marketers are terrible. So it's just, those are a couple hacks that I think you can use if you want to go out and, play the system a bit.
That's a good one too, man. Love that. Now, I want to get your opinion on lookalike audiences. When do you use them? When do you go from warm to cold? Because a lookalike audience is completely cold, but it mimics your warm.
Yeah.
So when do you use it? When do you use that card?
So one, I think you need to have a big enough audience that the lookalike audience is based off of something substantial. So like, don't build a lookalike audience off of 15 people. Like you're basically just firing blindly at that point. But if my favorite place to use lookalike audience is this, if you have a conversion page, like a thank you page, I build a lookalike audience of anyone that hits the conversion page or anybody that, opts in for the email list or things like that. That's the best place to do it. Once you get usually over 1,000 is where you want to start trying that. But if you can build a lookalike audience of people who have bought from you before or who have taken the action you want, that's the best lookalike audience you can get. The other one to do is, sometimes you have to come up with really creative ways to find your audience. And in cases where, maybe you can only find 50 or 100 people that are like your audience, it's a good place to start. And, not that you want to do this always. It's not always the best idea to build a lookalike audience off of a small audience, but sometimes you'll be targeting an audience that's very difficult to you can't just punch it into the Facebook ad manager and be like, oh, cool, I can target, 22 to 25-year-old African Americans that are living outside of major metropolitan cities, but not in the city, but who also like tacos but dislike burritos. Like, I don't know, just making it. Maybe you can't target them because you just can't put that in there. So you may have to get creative. And in that case, you use the lookalike audience. And then from there, you're trying to build your retargeting audience off of that by who comes through. So those are the times to use it. I mean, I think lookalike audiences are always worth part of your testing process. Another time where it's a good idea actually is when your custom audience is too small. So when your audience is too small, you still want to target those people, but you want to, maybe it's like you only have 1,000 people or 1,100 people, and Facebook's like, it's a little too narrow. You add the lookalike audience to it, do the smallest lookalike audience, and then try and narrow that audience by geography or age or whatever. Starts to make it a little bit better, because then you can actually reach that custom audience when Facebook is otherwise telling you it's too small, which would make the price too high.
Yep, that's good. So if you guys didn't already know, lookalike audiences, you basically give Facebook some information, whether it's from your website pixel, from your file, like a customer file. Let's say that you're a chiropractor and you have a bunch of patients. You can upload the patient CSV to Facebook, and it's going to find other people that behave in the same way that file that you uploaded does. but they've never seen you before. So it's a great way to find new people that look just like your people you already have found. And you can do this for website visitors. You can do this for uploading a file, whether that's an email address, a phone number, etc. Um, there's a lot of other ways to do it too. You can even do lookalike audiences based off of engagement. So I like to really start my lookalike audiences from the top and work my way down, because like Jeff said here is you need a larger, I would say 1,000 people is a really good benchmark. It's what we use as well. So basically start off at, let's say, the clicks. So get 1,000 clicks to your website, or visitors, same thing, visitors to your website. And now I upload that. That's a lookalike audience. I can start to broadcast to more people. Once I get 1,000 people to opt in, now that's my next lookalike audiences. And I kind of work my way down the funnel eventually to purchase. And then maybe people who have bought multiple products. And so you can figure out who's going to perform most on Facebook. And that's going to long-term decrease your cost per acquisition.
Yep. And one thing I would just add is, again, I think the key to lookalike audiences is build a lookalike off of a group of people that have done what you wanted. So take the example of the penny per visit traffic hack I just talked about. So you could start with that, target the United States, and then for 2 weeks, run the cheap traffic campaign, then build a lookalike audience of people that have visited your website in the last 2 weeks. Now you know the type of people that are willing for a penny, basically, that they're so interested in it that they would easily click on it for that penny, that you can get them to your website. Well, now you can run an actual traffic ad on an automatic bid, and you'll probably get a very, very low cost per click. So the key is you just want to build it off of things that have worked in the past. Another one, if you're doing the Instagram, people who have visited your Instagram or engaged with your Instagram posts. So you run an organic campaign, basically, where you just start for the next 2 weeks, really hit Instagram hard, use the hashtags, get people engaging. Then what you do is you build an audience of people who have engaged with you in the last 2 weeks. Then you build a lookalike audience off of that. Now you're going to find people who are also going to be interested in that same type of content that those people engaged with. So again, always the starting point is people who have done what you wanted. Now build a lookalike audience from that.
Beautiful, man. I love this. So let's kind of now, as we finish up here, what are some action steps that whoever's watching can take action on? Because it's not about learning the information, it's about applying the information. So what would be the next thing that they should do after watching this?
I would say the first thing is go into the audience editor inside of Facebook ads and start building some audiences, specifically start building some retargeting audiences off of engagement, off of website traffic, all of those sorts of things. I think the next thing to do after that, go into a whiteboard room and start actually drawing out different campaigns, and make sure that each campaign is dynamically linked to another campaign. So make sure that you're doing a traffic campaign to people who have watched your video, or do a video view campaign for people who have engaged with one of your posts, or a conversion campaign to people who have visited your website. Start thinking on that level of every kind of campaign you put together needs to work and integrate with another campaign, and then freaking launch it and start looking at the data. Like, get into the data. Facebook actually provides really good data. And if you want to export it to Excel, do it, but you can write inside of the Facebook ad editor. And we work in the Power Editor for creating and monitoring, and we use the Power Editor for everything. But if you're in the ad editor or Power Editor, start customizing your views for every campaign. Make sure you're seeing not just the default stuff that Facebook wants to show you that makes their ads look good, but the stuff that's actually relative or valuable and relevant to the campaign that you're running. So start building out your custom columns, look at the different data, run your tests, and start picking some winners, and just see, based upon where you are today, what you're able to accomplish by, I think if you really spend 2 weeks really digging deep into the Facebook ads, you'll probably be fantastic at it in 2 weeks later. And just keep up with it. Keep watching what they're putting out. What are the new engagement ads that they give you? What are the new, what are the things that they're deprecating? What are the new stats that they give you? Just keep watching it all.
I love that, man. Well, guys, we're going to kind of wrap it up here. So, Jeff, if people wanted to connect with you, what would be the best way?
Yo, man, I love the Twitters. It's still my favorite thing on the internet. If I wasn't doing this as for a living, I would blog and I would use Twitter. I wouldn't do anything else. I would honestly shut down everything else. So hit me on the Twitters, Jay Gibbard. There's also Jeff Gibbard, but I don't use that one. So don't tweet me there. Tweet me at Jay Gibbard. Please listen to our podcast, Shareable. Please check out our company, truevoicemedia.com. You can listen to our podcast. I got a ton of videos up there. True Voice Media TV is like 60-second clips of like, yo, here's an answer to a question. So if anybody has a question, shoot that over to us. Hit me on Twitter, whatever. We love making those videos. They're a lot of fun. Yeah, man, those are basically the things. Oh, and the other thing, and this is just for the entrepreneurs out there. Yo, man, read jgibbard.com. It's my day in the life blog. It is literally my favorite thing that I do in everything that I do. It is my favorite place to write. It's where I share what it's like to run my company. I've been vulnerable on there to an extent that you would probably hopefully be inspired to do the same with, because this stuff is not easy. And if you're an entrepreneur, you know what it's like to not sleep. You know what it's like to sacrifice relationships sometimes. You know what it's like to be burnt out, what it's like to feel the highest of highs and then the next day feel the lowest of lows. So my blog is really it's a testament to being an entrepreneur and my commitment to that. And not that I feel that entrepreneurs are superior to other people. I never want to give that impression, but that we are different and we need to stick together and support one another, because doing this is really, really hard. And my day in the life is my outlet for that.
Mm-hmm. I love that, man. Awesome. I can't wait to read that. I haven't read it yet, but I'm about to. So guys, go ahead, go over, connect with Jeff here, add him on Twitter, go out and read his blog posts and listen to Shareable. Shareable, correct? That's
Shareable podcast.
That's how we find it on iTunes.
Yep. Just look for Shareable podcast. You'll see my pretty face up there and it'll say Shareable. It's about people and technology. You can go back and listen to all of season 1. Season 2 launches on August 21st, I believe. So it's this coming Monday. I don't know when you're releasing this, but whenever that will be, it's August 21st. Go and listen to it. Our lineup this season is sick.
Sweet, man. Can't wait. Well, guys, thank you so much for watching. If you're interested in learning more about Facebook advertising on a higher level, look at the top right of your members portal and you'll see Facebook Ads Mastery. It's an additional course that will walk you through click by click on setting up campaigns for your clients. But with that, thanks so much for watching and I'll see you in the next masterclass.
Now, here are some interesting facts about the mastermind which give you an idea of how important it is and how necessary that you embrace this principle and make use of it in attaining success in your chosen occupation. First of all, it is the principle through which you may borrow and use the education, the experience, the influence, and perhaps the capital of other people in carrying out your own plans in life. It is the principle through which you can accomplish in 1 year more than you could accomplish without it in a lifetime if you depended entirely upon your own efforts for success.